In this video, I'm going to be going over the points of performance for a push-up. This really applies to most horizontal pressing things, like even dumbbell press and stuff like that. But we're going to talk about elevated push-ups and on the floor. So as far as upper body goes, the big things we're kind of looking for are maintain hand pressure, playing with arm angle, and then also paying attention to how deep we're going based on what our shoulders are doing as we get to the bottom part of the lift. So first step is hand pressure. Make sure we're feeling 3 points of contact. We want the heel of your hand, so there's this bony spot in the outside part of your palm here. That pad there should be heavy on the floor. The thumb side of your palm will be second, and then your fingers are the third. They're just relaxed onto the floor. Doing this should create an arch in my hand here, that as I load my hand, I lose that arch a little bit, and that's actually what I'll be pressing through. So I'm going to lower down into the push-up through with a little bit heavier hand on the outside. That gives me a nice space to open down into and let my chest open up. Then as I come up, I'm going to push through the thumb side of my hand, and that kind of helps make sure that all of the joints are able to access the internal rotation they need to actually press through the floor, and we don't get any exaggerated shrugging, cranking in, shoulders dumping, things like that. So making sure it helps us kind of access the positions we need to actually put force into the ground. So when I'm getting set up for a push-up, I want to try to get into a nice stacked position. I want my head, my rib cage, and my pelvis stacked over top of one another. This gives me the most opportunity to have the most shoulder range of motion. So what I'm going to do is, as I set up, same thing like I said, find my hand pressure. And what's nice is this will give you a lot of info about where you're positioned at. If I am too far over my hands, it'll be really hard to keep pressure on that bottom part of my palm, and I'll feel like my hand is flattening. I'll feel a lot of stress on my wrists. If I'm too far behind my hands, it'll be really easy to pick up my fingers. So it kind of gives you enough feedback to kind of play with like the position here. It should be like at the point of the top here, my fingers can be relaxed, but I can't really pick them up. Like I'm trying to lift my hand, and to do that, I have to like move my whole arm. So that tells you I'm right over top my hands. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get nice and long here, long through my spine as I can. I'm going to keep my knees unlocked, so I'm not locking my knees out. You can see as I do that, that automatically kind of pushes me into like extending at my low back. We're trying to avoid that a little bit. I like to think of the push-up as a moving plank. So you should feel some core working as we're also feeling a lot of chest and triceps. Like I said, hand pressure. Long spine, soft knees, so just slightly unlocked. They don't need to be crazy bent, just unlocked. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to reach away from the ground as far as I can without losing my neck. Keep my neck long, reach as far away as I can until I actually feel like I'm starting to round a little bit. Now I'm going to keep that reach as I try to lift my sternum as high as I can. The reach will help me avoid my low back wanting to extend too much. So when I keep that reach like that and then try to lift my chest, and make sure it's happening from the rib cage actually moving, not me just doing this and tilting my entire rib cage backwards. Hand pressure. Pointer fingers are pointing straight in front of me. Soft knees. Reach away from the floor. Big chest, lift the sternum up. Now I'm going to try to maintain. I feel a little bit of abs working already. I'm going to try to keep my abs on as I just control down towards the ground and push back up. I'm trying to let gravity kind of guide me down into that position, and I'm just focusing on my hand pressure. The motion is over as soon as you feel like your collarbone starts to move. Instead of moving back and down, it starts to want to move up or forward or both. So as soon as I feel like that starts to happen, that is the end of the motion. You can stop at that point, even if you're not all the way to the bottom. Okay? What that will look like is as I go down, the common compensations are going to be as I drop down and I start to lose access to those positions, I'm either going to do this and arch my back, my shoulders are going to round like this, or my elbows will just flare way out to the side. So I'm trying to keep, again, similar to the rowing and stuff like that, I want to keep my arms kind of at like a 45 to 60 degree angle, somewhere in here. I don't want my elbows way out to the side. I don't need my elbows right next to me unless we're doing variations that call for that. If we're doing a very wide push-up, you might have your elbows wider. If we're doing a narrow, close grip push-up, before you're trying to focus more on triceps, then it's okay to do that. But with my arms at my side or closer to 90 degrees, I don't have as much shoulder motion, so you will not be able to go all the way down most likely. Okay? So recap, hand pressure, fingers pointing straight ahead. Get long with just soft knees. Reach as far as you can. Until I start to round, I feel some abs on. Lift the sternum up, feel a big chest, and from there I'm just kind of maintain hand pressure as I drop down, push through the thumb side of my hand to come back up. Biggest thing for me is you should feel big muscle groups doing the work. So I feel a lot of chest, a lot of tricep, a little bit of shoulder. If you're feeling something more pinpoint as far as like one spot taking a lot of the load, if it feels more jointy, we'll probably need to tweak your setup a little bit. Can we shore up a part of our hand to make it easier to feel all those points of contact? Can we elevate the heels of our hands a little bit to give our wrists more space? But this is where I will help you kind of adjust stuff. It just depends on where you're feeling it, what part of the lift you're feeling it, things like that. When you're doing an elevated push-up, nothing changes, okay? Same thing if I was doing a kneeling push-up. It wouldn't change anything. Do the same setup. I would just set up the same way and then keep my knees on the ground. And I would do the same thing, reach myself away as far as I can. Big chest. No different. Same thing on a bench. I'd make sure to find hand pressure, and that kind of dictates how far forward back. If I'm too far back, I can lift my fingers. I'm too far behind my hands. Too far forward, I can't. Too much weight on my hands. My hands are already flat. I want to have a little bit of an arch in my palms. It's right about here. Reach away as far as I can. Big sternum. That is how we do a good push-up.